Hello and welcome to today's episode of Authentic Achievements, where it's my absolute privilege to be joined by the fabulous Dr. Tony Dice. Dr. Dice, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I hope we can help at least one person today. That's our goal.
Absolutely. I love that. That is always my goal, is if we could just help one person, then it's worth it. And as we know from before we got on here, we could get stuck into the conversation quite quickly. So before we do, let me share with a little bit more about you with the audience. So Dr. Dice is CEO and owner of Bishop and Dice Defence LLC, empowering veterans, law enforcement and first responders. As a Navy SEAL, therapist, paramedic and firefighter, Dr. Dice is nationally recognised, leveraging his unique TacOps and PsyOps approach to provide tactical solutions and mental health services that build critical trust. Dr. Dice's journey has been anything but linear, from overseas deployments to firefighting, from decorated service to the depths of meth addiction. He has lived the extremes of chaos and control. His most pivotal moment came during active addiction, when the pull of meth was strong enough to keep him from saving his young son during a public health crisis, a moment that forced him to confront the war within. Emerging from that reckoning, Dr. Dice built a life of service anchored in truth, accountability, and recovery. His memoir, After the Trident, reveals the transformative power of his holistic change model, designed to heal the invisible wounds of those who serve. I mean, wow. I don't even know where to start, Dr. Dice. I mean, so much in there. Could you perhaps bring that to life for us? I can't begin to imagine what you feel.
I mean, if I were to put it in a nutshell, I was someone who just wanted more and more, and I was given the ability to stack achievements on top of one another, and there was never enough. I mean, there was one challenge after another. I needed something to push against my entire life. And the world kind of, they accept people like that. You want to be a high performer, we'll encourage you, we'll cheer for you. And that was feeding. And, like so many people I run into today who are achieving in life, they're not nurturing what's inside. And, as Rob Wilson would say, there's a check engine light going off and they don't pay any attention to it. And then at some point, there's going to be a reckoning, and I blew my life up on so many levels and came crashing down. And, the higher you go, the longer the drop, and that crater is pretty wide and does a lot of damage. So if you want to know my story arc, it's someone who was homeschooled and somehow got away out into the big bad world, achieved a lot, fell hard, blew up. And I think what finally got me here today was this desire, or this realization, by helping others, I can be helping myself. And that kind of been this beat in the background, like, hey, there's something to that. I went back into education, undergraduate, master's, PhD, became a therapist, started working with veterans, law enforcement, first responders, the heroes of our country, and really saw a pattern that, hey, these guys, the silent heroes in our country, are the ones that are actually hurting way more than we realized. And they, who's a hero's hero? Where do they turn? And there's this dearth of information out there, what they can do. And so able to kind of figure that out over time, working with many years, decades of working with them, I was able to find a place where, wow, we can do a lot of good if we can just amplify this message.
Wow. I mean, just so much in there. And I think when you do dedicate your life to serving others, you often forget to serve yourself within that. And you can't pour from an empty cup, can you?
No, but it's funny. I think when, take the Navy SEALs, they have this 40% rule. And it is that you push yourself as hard as you possibly can. You go as hard as you can. You're only at 40%. That means there's 60% further you can go that you just didn't know you have access to. What that looks like to society is that I'm being pushed through anything. I'm indestructible. I can't be stopped. And that ultimately leads to just more time to do more damage to oneself.
Yeah. That so resonates, because I think often, that we do just keep pushing, and we do deny ourselves and what we need, because that at some level feels like a weakness we're not allowed to acknowledge. And it's not a weakness. It takes real strength to acknowledge that you need to do something for you as well. But societally, we have perhaps driven that fear that could be seen as a weakness. Would that resonate?
Oh yes, on so many levels. Just from being a small child, suck it up, handle your shit. All these terms you get along the way. You should be able to take care of yourself. This even when you get into the higher leadership structures, you have all this teamwork and team building and be there for the team. All of that implies that I need to have myself squared away. I don't want to be the weak link. I don't want to be that guy. All of that plays into me not going to tell you that something's wrong, because that would look like failure.
That's so true. And it always reminds me of that. I've spent nearly 30 years leading big teams in corporates, and you'd often hear that saying, there's no I in team. And I remind my team all of the time, there is no I in team, but if you look very closely, there is a me. So don't lose yourself in driving the team, because we can't survive without all parties being there. So you've got to acknowledge that part of what you need to be able to be the best player on the team for the team.
But is so true.
We don't share that, do we?
No, we don't. And we don't. I think there's another piece to that we need to kind of bring to light. If you think about walking through life and the people you've helped, and maybe someone at some point you were able to help someone, and what an honor it felt for them to ask you. It's like, whoa, they trusted me enough. And it feels really good for having someone open up to you and allow you the opportunity to help them. It's almost like they're bestowing an honor to you, and if I were to amplify that all the way to the battlefield, and my buddy needs help and I get to run in and throw him on my shoulder and drag him out of combat, that is a huge honor that I'm able to do that and be there at the right time in the right place and save someone. Well, if you bring that all the way back down to the everyday life, and someone's having a hard time and they turn to you and they say, I'm not okay, do you have a minute? They're giving you that same honor. Now, if we realize that it's not me being a burden to someone, it's me honoring someone. So if I'm hurting inside, I don't want to tell anyone, but I have someone in my field, I'm going to honor them by asking them for help. If we can flip the script on that and make you realize that you are not whining, you are not, you're not going to be bothersome to this person. You are in fact honoring someone. You're entrusting someone enough to let them inside. If we realize what we're really doing when we ask for help, hopefully we can lower that resistance to do it.
That so resonates, Dr. Dyson. I think it is that element, isn't it? Whereas when somebody asks us, we don't think they're a burden. We don't think that they're being difficult. We don't think they're weak. We're just grateful for the opportunity to feel valued, to feel like we can add something that's going to make them, hopefully help them. And yet we do often have that other dialogue in our head that says, yeah, but when we ask them, they're going to think differently of us. For some reason, they're not going to think what we think. They're going to think the exact opposite. And, I've got a little girl, she's 9, and I constantly say to her, the thing is, we have problems and we have emotions, and they don't need to be fixed. They need to be acknowledged. We need to acknowledge them. We need to understand what they are. And then we need to sometimes have a place to sit with them and work out what we want to do with them. But societally, we have got a drive almost to want to fix things. If somebody comes and gives us their opinion, well, let me fix that for you. Well, they're not saying it's broken. Why can we not just sit with them and let them hold the space?
And we somehow have equated, silence and resilience and perseverance. These were all looked at as like, ooh, those hardcore qualities for success. And, and if you take resilience without self-awareness, it just becomes rigidity, the inability to be flexible. That's eventually going to crack. I don't care what kind of badass you are, You take a cup of coffee and you hold it at arm's length. You cannot stay there forever. I don't care who you are. Eventually, that cup of coffee is coming down. So there needs to be another way of look at resilience. It's that added piece of self-development, self-improvement, self-awareness that makes it that flexibility needed to adapt and overcome.
I love that. It is that adaptability, isn't it? It's that ability to keep evolving, because the world keeps evolving. So if we don't, at some point we're going to become irrelevant, because to your point, that coffee cup is going to fall. It's not going to keep holding up. But I mean, obviously, you've had to do a lot of self-healing in your journey with all that's gone on. But for you, what was the moment that propelled you from that self-healing, from what can I do to help me, or how can I invite people into my world to help me heal, to develop your model to help others?
Well, first I want to, give credit where credit is due. I was, when I crashed and burned, I ended up in a treatment center. I was addicted to crystal meth. I weighed 130 pounds, about 60 kilograms. And I was, I was skin and bones. I'm 6'2", that's not a good look for me. And I was still, just kind of holding on, like, I can get through this. I've been through worse, I can fix this. And there was this, I don't want to say a moment of reckoning, but there was this, okay, you are in trouble. This is gone beyond, and I do need help. And I had to admit, I am an addict. I had to realize that was a truth about me, that I'm an alcoholic and an addict. And when I was saying give credit where credit's due, the treatment center I was in was a 12-step theory, 12-step recovery place. And so, these programs exist out there, and they're far more prevalent than I had ever realized. And I entered into a 12-step program. And there was a healing arc that took place in that at first I was averse to, because 12 steps, if you don't know anything about them, they seem very cultish. They seem very God-centered, very much all these things that I was like, I don't know if I want to drink your Kool-Aid. They call it a gift of desperation. I felt like I needed some help, and maybe this would work. Everything in that next year, I jumped in with both feet. Everything about me had changed. So much so that I wanted to know why. I was like, this is crazy. I was here and now I'm here. How did this work? And that kind of drove me to really pivot and look at 12-step programming. What's going on here? I got my undergraduate, I got my master's. I began to do research, writing papers, looking into interviewing people, just kind of peeling back the onion. What is 12-step philosophy? What is this? How is this working on so many people? Do you know there's over 200 different 12-step programs in the world? They have for Clutters Anonymous, Under Earners Anonymous, Anxiety Anonymous, Meth Anonymous, Coke Anonymous. There's all these different 12-step programs out there, all having success with the human condition, not just drugs and alcohol. They have Online Gamers Anonymous. I mean, it runs the whole gambit. So when I finally, a master's program, began looking at 12-step psychology, what's going on, I noticed there is this arc that takes place. And that's the same one I followed in my life, and the first parts, the first 3 steps are awareness. Are you aware of where you're at, what you've become, that you have a problem of some sort? That's going to roll into an acceptance of oneself, of your story. You kind of fall in love with your character again, you begin rooting for him. Come on, buddy, you can do it. That's going to go into a process of change. You finally begin to change your behaviors, how you interact with the world. You begin repairing relationships, and all that damage done, you begin to become accountable for. And then the last part is connection. You're plugging into those around you, learning how to have authentic relationships, plugging into the world. How can I be of service now that I've rebuilt myself? And I think the message I took from that arc, that healing arc that takes place in every single 12-step program out there, was that I need to be strong so that I can help others. What you talked about earlier, that there's a me and team, I still need to be strong. I need to take care of me if I want to be there for my buddy. So that part there it's almost kind of selfish at first, where you need to nourish this. You need to be aware of, did you put oil in the engine this morning? Is there enough fluids? All of that, so that I can be effective team member. I can be there when someone else needs me.
That so resonates, Dr. Dyson. I think, for me, for a lot of years, I didn't really understand that concept. I didn't get, we've all heard that adage that you put your own gas mask on.
Mm-hmm.
I never understood that, because I was like, why would you? That feels really selfish. Until I had my daughter. And when I had my daughter, we were on a flight and she was just over 1. And it suddenly hit me, if I didn't put mine on first, she'd be hopeless. Because if I got hers on and I didn't get mine on, who would help her? And I'm sad to say, it took me until that point for it to actually make sense. Because you just kept going, you just kept driving. And actually what you needed felt selfish until you were in a situation where you were with somebody that without your help would be helpless. Gosh. And you realize, actually, unless I rethink this, unless I revisit where I'm going,
right,
I'm the cause of her being helpless instead of her being helped. And that was a real game changer for me, recognizing that that's not selfish, that's selfless.
Ooh, and that's a powerful, that realization and moment that it entices you to change.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, remember when seatbelts weren't required by law? Remember, no one cares who wore a seatbelt. And so no one did. The kid climbed all over the car. You never wore a seatbelt. And all of a sudden this law comes saying seatbelts are mandatory. And I was like, you can't tell me what to do, and I would lie saying, seatbelts keeps you stuck in the burning car. Seatbelts, I'd rather be thrown free of the wreckage and survive. And I wouldn't wear it. I wouldn't wear it until there was this realization that if there's a crash, how am I going to help, save my brother and sister? How am I going to help save my mom? How am I going to be the hero if I'm injured? In order for me to be there, I need to survive this crash. And that was the part that made me, all right, I'll put it on. It made me change my behavior.
Yeah. I love that, because I think sometimes we have to realize how wrong or how misinformed our view is to enable us to make a different view.
That's right. And you have to see it.
It came from the right intention. It came from a good place. It came from a desire to do the right thing. But sometimes we have to look at it and go, that might be our intention, but is it our impact? So our intent to do it from the right thing, but actually my impact in putting hers on instead of mine would have gone against what I wanted. The impact of you not putting the seatbelt on would have gone against what your intention was. And I think sometimes we have to really think critically, don't we, about whether or not our intention and our impact are genuinely in alignment. Does that resonate?
Absolutely. That does, so much so. I mean, we are stubborn creatures, I mean, and it seems like the harder charger you are, the more stubborn you're going to be, because my will is going to get through this. And it takes us longer to see what everyone else can see. Listen, put your seatbelt on, buddy. Here's all the data of it saving lives. Nope, not for me. Yeah, we have those blinders on. Those blinders of, I don't want to see what I don't want to see. That is why they call it hitting a bottom. That realization, to be able to hit something so hard, you're able to shift perspective. And it could be you lost all your money. It could be you lost your kids. It could be a DUI. It could be so many things to shake you up and make you realize, wait a minute, maybe I don't see something. And it comes in different ways. Sometimes it's completely invisible. You can have an emotional bottom or a spiritual bottom where all of a sudden something inside just like, I'm sick and tired of living this way.
Yeah.
And you shift. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that so resonates, because I think sometimes we have to hit that part that goes, where I am is too uncomfortable to stay. And where I could move to, whilst that looked uncomfortable, no longer looks as uncomfortable as where I am. I guess where it's been in my world has been, in those moments where you look at this and go, yeah, no, not for me. They're not for me yet. It's only been when where I am has become so unbearably uncomfortable that change becomes your only option.
Yes. And I think one of the hardest things for someone is to watch someone else walk that path, because it's usually very evident to everyone else the change for you needs to occur. Everyone's been trying to tell you or hint at it, or and you're not listening, but you have to watch them find that place to shift perspective. You got to watch them hit their own bottom. And many people, like, I don't know whether it be an overprotective parent, a really, really, really good friend. There could be a lot of people who kind of delay the consequences and kind of, I don't know, say it's retard their emotional development by not allowing them to enter a place where change is promoted.
Yeah. I love that. And I can't believe where time's going. And there's so much I still want to ask you. You kind of touched briefly in the intro about the fact that part of your model for helping people to kind of overcome this change, to be able to embrace it and move through it, is the TacOps and PsyOps. Could you
Sure.
for us?
Okay. Yes. I have found, and I'm going to give you a little visual metaphor here. I have my dukes up for those of you who can't see me on video here. I'm in a fighting stance, and this is very comfortable to me. And if you were to look inside the head, the subconscious of most law enforcement, first responder, veterans, all these alphas out there, this is how their psyche is. They have their defenses up. They're on alert. Their head's on a swivel. They're looking around for the next threat. They can say, you ask them how they're doing and say, I'm fine. Thank you. This is how they are inside. And when they would sit down before a therapist, God forbid, they continue to keep their dukes up. They do not. They're like, I'm not letting you in. I'm not saying anything that's going to endanger my career. I am fine. Thank you. Well, it takes a long, long time to gain the trust of, fire rescue, paramedics, law enforcement, all of them. They don't trust very easily. For someone to trust, they begin to lower their arms, open up, take this open stance, which looks incredibly uncomfortable because I'm vulnerable. Well, what we do at Bishop and Dice Defense is we provide tactics, training, ammunition. We come in, uniform supply, whatever your department needs. We will be Johnny on the spot. We'll come down, we'll talk, we'll visit, we'll shoot the shit. And for a whole year, we will build a relationship. On year 2, we bring in the PsyOps. We begin to talk about mental health treatment. We begin to talk about, what is being able to have a confidential support group. What does it mean to be able to talk off the record? We begin to introduce these concepts of opening up. So the TacOps is almost like the business training supply side of the company. And on year 2 of our relationship with these agencies, we bring in the PsyOps, where they finally trust us to begin to say, okay, I can open up to these guys. These guys are cool.
Oh, amazing. And I love that, because we've got to feel physically safe before we can feel psychologically safe, haven't we? So we've got to build that trust and kind of almost feel that this part of us is easier to trust than this part of us.
Yes.
Of us that's locked in there. So for someone like listening or watching that's feeling overwhelmed, they know they need to change, they know something needs to be different, but they're feeling overwhelmed and unsure where to start. What's one courageous step that they could take today towards healing?
Well, before I jump into that, let me just quick a shout out, as we were talking to different agencies out there, to law enforcement right now. Law enforcement is I've worked with a lot of different populations, and I must say, working with law enforcement officers are a special breed, and I think it's merely because of this. When I was in the military, I would deploy overseas. I'd be in country, and then I'd come back, be able to continue training and process stuff. And law enforcement is forever in country, so they're forever on deployed. They never come home. And so in working with them, they've been especially, I want to say challenging, but very, very hard to bring their defenses down. So I'm giving a shout out to them. Let them know that we're aware of the fight they're fighting. And I want them to know, should it be them who's struggling? Should it be anyone else who's struggling right now? The simple act of turning to someone and saying, you have a minute. The simple act of extending I don't want to say the olive branch, but the opening the door to a small conversation. This, it takes some work. If you're not used to connecting with people, turning to someone and saying, hey, you got a minute? Let me bounce something off you. Being able to talk about a scenario. When we say rescue, when we say help, you need to participate in your own rescue. You can't just wait till someone kicks in the door and drags you to safety. You need to put your arm in the life preserver. A friend could be coming over to check on you. If you keep saying you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine, I'm fine, please, I'm fine, that's not you putting your arm. So the simple act I'm saying is, there are going to be people in your sphere. There's going to be online support group. There's going to be something. The act of you opening the door just a little bit and saying, hey, you got a minute. Let me bounce this off of you. Let me get some feedback. That is the very beginning of everything. It really is. It is the little tiny hole in the dam that the pressure can start being relieved. It all starts with that simple act. And this is unfortunately one of the hardest parts of getting help, is that very, very, very beginning. In recovery, they call it a 10,000-pound phone. You know, they say that the act of calling someone, that when you're holding the phone in your hand, that it is a 10,000-pound arm curl to be able to get it up to your ear, because you will think of every other excuse in the book than to make that call. So if I had one thing to say, I would say, ask someone, they got a minute. Can I bounce something off you?
Oh, Dr. Dice, that's so true. And I think, you know, we say it's a simple act, but like you say, it's the $10,000 arm curl. And again, help those people that are feeling overwhelmed, that are thinking, well, okay, it's all right to say simple, but it's not that simple, is almost put yourself on the other end of that phone. If somebody was calling you, how would you feel?
If someone was reaching out, just like we've been talking about all today, you know, be sure to recognize internally the honor this person's bestowed on you. You know, they have given you this awesome gift of trust to crack the door, you know, for you to be able to put down what you're doing and say, and give them their full attention for that 1 minute. And remember, 90% of good counseling and 90% of being a solid friend is just listening. You know, all you're letting them do is let it out. And many of their own questions, they're going to answer it for themselves. They're going to say stuff out loud and realize how it sounds and be able to move on from that. So don't feel you're not qualified. Don't feel I'm not a therapist. 90% is just bouncing stuff off you, and thank them for sharing. Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you for reaching out. This is awesome. And gosh, remember when you were there for me? Absolutely. I got time. Let's sit down. Let's get some coffee. And then this is the key, the follow-up the next day. Hey, yesterday we talked, man. Hey, what's going on? They reached out to you, reach back and continue the relationship. Let them know that they did not impose on you, and that because they may feel like they can't open up more than once because now they're considered a whiner. You know, be sure to follow up with the phone call and continue that conversation.
Dr. Dice, I love that. As one of my friends says, true listening is an act of love. I can't believe that we've run out of time almost. So, Dr. Dice, can you share with us who you help and how people can get in touch with you?
Who I help? Oh man, my tagline on my email is, how can I do the greatest amount of good for the most amount of people? So just like we've been talking about today, reaching out is going to be half the battle. You know, getting your arm in the life preserver. So if you want to get a hold of me, you want to work with some of the people I'm working with, you can find me on any social media platform, Dr. Dice. You know, just drop the name in there and it's going to pop up. You can find me at bishopandicedefense.com, and that's my company that Scott Bishop and I started years ago. And the last way, if you wanted to get a hold of me or you wanted to be in touch with me, and this is by far going to be, if you want to be in tune with what the work I'm doing, look at drdicebook.com. And that's going to put you on a mailing list. That's giving me first access to my book that's coming out next month. It's going to open the door to the world of how can we help our nation's heroes.
Amazing. Dr. Dice, I can't thank you enough. And for anybody that didn't scribble all that down fast enough, please do not worry. If you just look at the show notes below, all of the ways to connect with Dr. Dice will be there for you. Dr. Dice, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, your experience, and your expertise with us. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be here.
And for everybody listening and watching, I hope you found today's episode to be as insightful, inspiring, and thought-provoking as I have. And until next time, take care.